honestly make it too much power
Yeah.
for what those rods are capable of handling.
What is going on, guys? We are starting off the video here in the truck. We are currently on our way to Modular Head Shop. We're going to meet up with Jordan. I dropped off my motor the other day and we got the parts ordered, so everything is rolling on the GT500 5.8 liter engine build. And if you guys have not seen the video already, go click the card right up there or down in the description. Yeah, we got a little bit of a rod knock from a bent rod on the GT500. But that's all right. We are building this thing and it is going to be awesome. Today we're going to be tearing down the motor. So we're going to see what failed, which we pretty much know is a rod, but we're going to get a look at the bearings and basically everything inside the motor. So we're going to completely tear it down with Jordan from Modular Head Shop. So let's go head down there. Luckily, I'm only half an hour away from Modular Head Shop here in Central Florida. Of course, let Jordan know if you need any motor builds. We're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff with this engine build, and might do a 2-valve build later on or something like that. So super awesome. I'm super excited, and we're gonna eventually have basically this whole motor. We're gonna list it on MustangLifestyle.net, the specs and everything. So if you want to build your motor same exact way as mine, you'd be able to. So let's go ahead and teleport over to the shop. Well, for you guys, teleport. For me, I gotta drive another 20 minutes. So let's do it. All right, so we just made it over to Modular Head Shop. We're here with Jordan, and we have my 5.8 liter. So this is Jordan, Modular Head Shop.
Hey everybody, Jordan from Modular Head Shop.
So we're gonna be tearing into my blown up 5.8 liter. Not really blown up, we saved it, right?
Yes, yeah. We're just making sure that there's no damage that's gonna hurt this future build that we're planning to do. So we're gonna take everything apart and go through the inspection process.
Yeah, so I sent you the picture of the rod, but obviously we're gonna get to see everything close up, see what the bearings look like, see what the crank looks like. If we need a new crank, hopefully we don't need a new block, which I don't think we do. No. So that's the expensive part. So, and then we got the beautiful heads and everything. So we're just going to be tearing into it and showing, you know, what we see and all that good stuff. So that was about, what, less than 10 minutes?
Yeah, about 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was definitely faster
got all the
than,
covers off.
Yeah.
So, yep. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take the primary timing chains off. We'll inspect for wear, and then me and Harley here are gonna show everybody how we pull cams apart. So for like on race engines where we might want to check the cam timing and stuff, I want to keep the sprockets on. So there is a way to keep the sprockets on and pull the cams out. And then that way we would put our checker springs and our checker retainers in there and then check the cam timing. If you loosen these bolts, there's enough slop in there that your cam timing will be lost. It's going to be close, but it could be up to 3 or 4 degrees off just by the slop in the factory sprockets. So.
Yeah, what do you think of how do the cams look? How does the chains look?
I really won't know how the cams look until I get the caps off. The journals are our main concern. From what I can see, the lobes look pretty good for an engine with this mileage. The head looks really clean. It definitely hasn't gotten hot, and the oil has definitely been changed pretty frequently. You can definitely tell. It only takes one time to have old or burnt oil in there, and it will stain the head forever. So this engine looks pretty good so far from the outside.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Squirter.
Miles are on this, Andrew?
30,000.
Okay, 30. I would say that's about what a straight chain guide wear strip looks like after 30,000 miles. That would be fine to reuse if you didn't want to buy brand new. That would be fine to reuse. So,
Nice.
no grooving, just a little bit of a staining from obviously heat cycling in the oil. And I am going to mark the head first. We have a ton of heads here. Every head has to have a 3-digit code, so I'm going to mark this head first before we even get started. That way nothing can get messed up.
We've been doing it on the stamp on the side.
This will be fine too. Got most of the tension off into here. See if anything's bound up. Alright.
Look good?
That looks pretty good. That looks really good actually. That's what we want to see.
I heard knock knock and I turned it off. So you're saying luckily these are all labeled each individual?
Well, not luckily, it just saves us the work. Now most 4-valve heads, they have 4 sets of 3 caps. And they can only go on one way. So on those, I would mark it in the same spot. They have the same style front cap. They just have bridges between them, okay? And so I'll only mark one of the caps and then we're just gonna zip tie them together.
Okay.
And they're gonna stay zip tied pretty much right after they come out of the safety clean tank, and they're gonna be in a bin with the person's name on them, or if the head hasn't been sold yet, like if it's a 2-valve head that's a core for us, then it would just have a 3-digit code that we would just generate when it's getting taken apart.
And then you took these apart, basically loosening every single cam cap going all the way down the line.
Yeah, I'm
What,
just trying
3
not. I'm
cycles?
just trying not to bind the cam. You kind of got to play it by ear. You know, earlier it did kind of unload on me, and that will happen because you're getting different parts of the lobe as the camshaft's coming up. So if one overcomes the other, it's gonna spin. So no, just don't go yanking all the bolts out all the way completely, because you go grab that last one out, it's gonna strip.
Yep.
It's kind of a pain in the butt to get out because they're both doweled, whereas typical 4-valve, they only have a few dowels on them. Just like that. I'm gonna put them back on. You're literally gonna put the secondary chains on like you typically would here on a bench, one in each hand, come up underneath, lay them over, get them relaxed, start putting the cam caps on.
Yeah. But we aren't using those. So we
aren't using those.
Rowdy cams.
We aren't using those. But if I was just freshening up a set of heads, some local dudes do this. If we're just freshening up a set of heads and I just needed to inspect them and maybe skim the deck a thou or two, we're not redegreeing the cams. They're at 0 point. It takes a long time to get them dead nuts, so you might as well save them, and that's how you would save the timing.
Yep.
It's not bad. Let's take it apart and see how bad it looks inside. Okay, so this is the secondary tensioner from the right head. Little grooving on the bottom. Top looks pretty decent. We'll get this one pulled off here in just a second. So this is the exhaust lash adjuster from a GT500. These are the lash adjusters that we put in all the high performance 2-valve and 4-valves. It has the same dimensions, it's just a little bit better. Now this is the intake one, which is very small. And the reasoning for this is that the intake port has raised runners, and so it's losing a lot of the real estate, if you want to call it that, up underneath there, and so that's why they've made it so much shorter.
Yeah. These intake ports look pretty big, but you're gonna port these bigger?
Bigger, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Intake port gets 2 operations. A roughing pass, and the roughing pass takes out a lot. And then it's got 80 thousandths to go on the finished pass, so. Yeah, I don't like using an impact on big shit, but these things are on there.
Muscles.
Oh, I got muscle. They are on there. They are on there. We go ahead and tilt this at 90 degrees.
How's she looking? Good?
I don't see
Rusty?
anything bad right there, so
Got
a little bit.
Oh, you know what? That's Torco. Right?
Yep.
That's
The
what,
gaskets seem to be sealing good.
not Torco, boosting. Same thing.
A little scrubbing, but oh no, it looks pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't lifting the head. How much boost were you running?
I ran as much as 24 on boosting, but we backed it down to 20 on E85.
Okay. Very cool.
Nice.
Be ready for a beer.
About the same.
Yep.
Ready to flip her over?
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Alright, where's our bendy rod? Which one is it?
Harness right here.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Nice and bent.
What cylinder is that?
8? That would be cylinder number 1. That's 1. That's 1, yeah. I'm not so sure that this motor's stock.
Really?
No.
And why is that?
Well, I just found something, but I'm not going to tell you yet until I turn it over a little bit.
Okay.
This is definitely number 1 though. Number 1's definitely bent. You can see where the top of the rod is up against the side of the piston here.
Yep.
So I was looking down up under here, and actually this is what Mike is my other guy here. Say hi, Mike. Mike's putting some Mallory in a crankshaft. So that's what you would have to add to the crank when it wants more weight. You can't really add any weight. I mean, you can weld up holes all day, but when there's no holes to weld up, the right way to do is put Mallory in there, which is a very dense metal. And there's a slug of Mallory in this crankshaft.
So it could have been rebuilt.
So somebody balanced it, and I'm thinking that these pistons are different than stock. So,
Really? That is interesting.
But I'm not the GT500 expert, because pretty much all the GT500s I build, I just buy the blocks separately, and so I don't really tear down these engines very much. So, yep, you can see it right here. There's a slug of Mallory in there. And it's not really done in the most tasteful way. I mean,
And that wouldn't be factory?
awful. No, I've never seen a factory crankshaft with Mallory in it. No.
Wow. Interesting stuff.
Kind of hard to see though. Just trying to see if I can find anything that would show that it may have been balanced by somebody else other than the factory. So.
Starting with the fun one?
Oh yeah. We'll go front to back. All right, rod bearing number 1. That looks pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, that looks fine. I mean, it's got a little bit of wear on it, nothing too bad. What we'll really want to see is what the top part though.
Yeah.
So the top part, the top rod bearing show, will always show detonation really bad. So if you have detonation, that is the telltale sign right there. It'll be, you'll see pressure marks on it if it's really light. If it's really bad, it'll literally just sandwich it and push it out.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, this looks good. The crankshaft journal looks good so far too.
That's good.
Yeah. This one's not going to be the easiest one to get out here though. All right, here's the top bearing. Looks good.
Nice.
It's pretty good. That's what it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn good.
For a bent rod.
Well, for an engine making this much power.
Yeah, very true.
You know, on stock clearances. The old 1/1000ths of oil clearance per 1 inch of bearing or 1 inch of journal surface just doesn't, you know, or journal diameter, I would say. That doesn't really cut it when you're making this much power. So I think that's why you see a lot of these things fail, honestly. It's just improper clearances for the amount of power that's being made. It is so bent, it's like, it's hitting the counterweight. There we go.
There she is.
There she is. Pretty good.
So, what would your guess be on what was knocking or making noise?
What was knocking is you're binding. You know?
So it's just the top of the piston, or
Yeah.
with the wrist pin making noise, or?
Yeah, it's probably from the wrist pin, or just binding to where you're putting a lot of pressure on one side of the piston, and it's not free floating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than that, the rod doesn't look really fatigued or anything. You just overpowered it. I mean,
Yeah.
Thankfully, it didn't break.
It was on E85, so detonation really shouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, there's no signs of detonation here.
Are those factory pistons?
To be honest, I couldn't tell you. They are Molly pistons, so if Molly was making them for the factory this year, I really don't know. It's a good piston, though. I just don't know why anybody would hang this rod on it. I actually think these are factory, though.
Yeah.
So
The rings
just,
look good?
You can't really see anything about the rings. They don't look bad. Typically, if you're in a really bad situation or improper ring gap, you know, the ring will butt here and then it'll just pop the top of the crown off. So this looks pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm just really not familiar with what comes in these from the factory because I honestly don't care.
You take the stock stuff out and put the good stuff in.
Right. Yeah. And also, so these rods here, these are definitely factory rods. These are what you would call a cap, a crack or a fractured cap. So they're powdered metal and they're fracturing it here.
So they come complete and you break them when they get assembled.
Yeah. Bolt. Yeah, with these rods, I mean, they are good for what they're built for from the factory. So if you're ever doing a stock rebuild or anything, you always want to mark the rods when you're taking them apart. But you want to have the same problem you would have with a typical H-beam or I-beam where all the caps look the same. You know, these will not, you will know right away if you have the wrong cap with the other rod. So sometimes the heat treat on the crankshaft will make it look like there's a hot rod, but so this kind of bluing here.
Yeah.
I'm not too concerned about that because it's probably factory heat treat. Now if you saw that type of bluing on the rod is gone. That's what it would look like if it spun a bearing.
Yep.
This one, everything's looking pretty good so far.
Yeah. Tops of the pistons look good.
Yeah. Molly makes a great piston. Very, very, very good. I actually like to use these in the Coyote stuff. Up to 1,000 horsepower, those are really good pistons. And they're gonna wear just like the OEM stuff. Oh, look about the same.
Nice.
So here's another thing that's different on the GT500 aluminum blocks is instead of having like a traditional 4-valve like a Texid or a WAP or a 3-valve block, you know, they typically have a 10mm bolt in the middle and then 8mm on the outside. These have the same, and they're the same length too. So when we go to put ARP studs in here, we're not actually using a regular 4-valve kit. We're going to use 2 of the standard iron block kits with the 10mm. So just 2 regular main stud kits for an iron block, and that's going to be where we're going to get the 2 sets of 10mm studs. Also, these have billet main caps from the factory. And for everybody at home, these are the same thread pitch as your transmission bolts. So use them for your engine stand.
Good stuff.
So, and also this block uses the shorter style 9mm side bolts, which is the same for a 3 valve or a WAP block. The correct part number for ARP is a 156 5002. That's what you would want to get for side bolts for this engine. It's not the traditional, 5.4 side bolt. It is okay to pry right here and pry the main cap up. It is not okay to put anything underneath and pry up.
Those are main bearings, right?
Yeah, main bearings. Not awesome, not awful. It's got some groovings, probably just a little bit of contaminant in the oil. That's it, nothing bad. This is number 3. Showing a little bit more wear than I would like to see.
Do you think that would have caused some metal shavings in the oil?
There probably is a little bit of metal coming from there. Yeah, you would see it when you were changing the oil, but it would be fairly slight. But also that, little bits of that, that's just not just from, one rotation. It's from, hundreds of thousands of rotations over time. So you're gonna get a little bit of contaminants when you have a bearing wear like that, and that is honestly what probably causes some of the scratches on here.
Does that show up on the crank too?
Typically not, because the bearings are much softer than the crankshaft. The crank is heat treated. I mean, when we're polishing cranks, you could polish a crank in the same journal for 5 minutes and you're gonna take off maybe 1 or 2 10,000ths. It's pretty hard stuff, so.
I don't know what to say. Doesn't look bad.
No, it doesn't look bad. Excuse my dirty fingers. No, it doesn't look awful. It's not something I would reuse though.
Yeah.
Alright.
You get it?
Yeah, you can grab it real quick because I'm going to say one thing here. Oh, okay. Cool. Don't worry about that. Alright, so number 1 main, showing a little copper on the top. Not surprising. Typical on a blower car, I would say.
Yep.
Do not think that the crank snout is not flexing. So, this is probably going to be the worst one here.
And that's the one where this one's the one that bent a rod too, right?
Correct. I would say they have no relation to each other.
Really?
No. Another thing to note too is, so these do not take the same main bearing as the iron block. So the iron block is grooved like halfway, and its main bearing it's a little bit different looking than this, whereas this is a traditional block side main bearing. So do not use the traditional 5.4 main bearing sets in these engines. Also, underneath here, we're going to plug these off on yours because I don't really feel that you need them and you're just pissing away oil. But here are your oil squirters. And so as the oil pump puts oil into the block, it goes to the oil filter. When it comes back, you're going to feed your mains through the main gallery line here. It's going to come up here and then obviously go through the crankshaft to the rods. But here, there's a little jet, and then you can see on this side of the block where it's machined at an angle, and that is a piston oil squirter.
That's 1314 only, right?
I believe so, yes. The Voodoo block is the same exact style as this.
Really?
Whereas the Coyote has the squirters that come up and go to each side, the Voodoo block is just like this.
So how does the block look?
Block looks good to me. Gonna need a line hone, and we're doing sleeves anyway, so
Yep.
everything else is good in the block. Block looks great.
Crank look good?
Crank looks good, yeah.
Nice.
It's a little polish. I still would like to do some investigation and see why a crankshaft like that would have heavy metal in it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just ignorant to production stuff like that because we just do so many a la carte stuff. But I've never seen a crankshaft with Mallory in it from the factory.
You see the hone mark? How it's soft?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and what makes me think that this is somebody else, I'll flip it over here. So, I mean, that's not the best job there. Now, typically I will weld them in because I'm always scared of shit falling out. But so I'll weld them in or we'll peen them. But I want my stuff to be flush. Leaving a gap like that, to me it doesn't look OEM. You know?
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah.
one.
There you go. That's what a good Mallory install looks like.
Yeah, it's nice and flush. Nice. So I don't need to buy a crank.
Don't think you need to buy a crank. No, sir.
And we got a block. Very expensive block.
A very expensive block is still good. Yeah.
So originally, when I first looked at this, I was like, oh sweet, just a bent rod. And then I looked at a picture and I was like, oh crap, the rod hit the block. And then I showed that to Jordan and he informed me, well, of course, if you look at all the other cylinders.
Yeah, that's just a relief for the rod bolts. That's it.
Yeah. So I was a little worried because I was like, oh crap, well if the rod somehow hit there, then that metal somewhere all over and yeah.
So yeah, as soon as he pointed that out, I was like, oh man, that's nothing. Don't worry about that. That's how it should be. So yeah, everything looks very, very good. There's literally no oil staining or anything. Nothing that shows that it really got hot. Just honestly making too much power for what those rods are capable of handling.
That's what it is. It was a long pull too. We were booking it in Mexico. Top of 4th gear, 29.5-inch tall tire. Somewhere around miles an hour. I'll probably have to blur that out.
Yeah. I do not condone that, by the way.
Yeah, it looks really clean in there.
Yeah, it's good.
It's nice.
It's not gonna give us any problems.
Heck yeah.
So is this the one that's like coated?
All right, so we're finished tearing down right now. We didn't find anything that was really damaged other than, you know, some main bearing wear, but that's about it, and the bent rod. So we're gonna get everything cleaned up. The parts we're gonna reuse will get cleaned and bagged and labeled. The other parts, Andrew can do what he wants with, and then Monday morning, the block is going up to L&M to get sleeved. While that's in transportation and being worked on up there, we'll be porting the cylinder heads. We're just gonna run our street port on there. Can use the stock valves, upgrade the springs to the pack 1230 and 1231X. I sell it as my stage 3 spring kit with our retainers, and then our custom camshafts that are ground for us by Comp Cams. Bottom end's going to be obviously sleeved. We're going to reuse the factory crank, King main bearings, King rod bearings, Molnar power adder rods, and Diamond's 5.8 liter specific pistons. We're going to go with a 3650 bore, which is a little smaller than stock, but it gives us plenty of rebuilds on the sleeves. We're upgrading the wrist pins and adding a couple little things on there. Other than that, it is a shelf piston. These are all going to be, you know, right off the shelf parts pretty much.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited, and we're going to film some of the cylinder head porting.
Yes, yep.
And this will be back to us in a week or two, something like that.
Yep.
Probably, what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, about 2 weeks probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And rods and pistons are on the way, right?
Yep. Yep.
Heck yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna make some power. So we're gonna end up putting together what, a package of, if anyone wants to do this same exact build.
Absolutely, yeah. Me and Andrew have talked about putting this kind of recipe out there, and we'll offer it both ways. We'll offer it just like, you know, we did to him, where pretty much you want to send us the whole engine down, and we'll build it.
Yeah.
If you don't have a core engine, we can source the parts, but that will be very, very expensive.
Yeah, this block, that's why I was so concerned. As soon as I heard a noise, I turned it off.
Yeah.
This block, it probably would have set things back a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't priced out new stuff. You know, obviously there's used stuff, but when you're building engines for people, you can't really just, you know, bet on being able to find a used part. It's different when you're doing it for a business. So I would say, you know, if I was to offer this, this whole setup to somebody with all brand new parts, I want to say the heads are $10,000 from Ford.
Yeah, and the block's
brand
what,
new.
7 or something like that?
The block's probably 5,500 to 6,500. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll put it all together. Leave a comment down below. If you guys do have any questions, Jordan's phone number will be right here, and your website down below in the description, and email, whatever. Right?
Email's modheadshop@gmail.
Yeah.
I like emails.
Yep.
Emails are good.
All right, and stay tuned for the rest of this build.
it.